Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome in. We are entering the final week of the college football regular season, and we've got an update on the different college football playoff scenarios. There's going to be a few arguments, there's no doubt about it, depending on what happens with this final week of action. Just taking a look at the FPI right now, you do have Notre Dame moving up 2 spots after destroying Syracuse 70-7. Notre Dame is an interesting case in terms of the resume versus the analytics, but right now they are the number 3 team according to the analytics. You do also have some slight movement. You've got Georgia moving down 2 spots. Very, very close in terms of the overall numbers there, with Alabama only a .1 difference. But just overall, let's take a look at the playoff chances. You can see Ohio State, Indiana, Texas A&M, they're all locks to make the playoff. Georgia at this point, even if they lose to Georgia Tech, which they're probably not going to, they're also a lock. Oregon at 10-1. They've got a game on the road at Washington. That'll be interesting in terms of the Big Ten scenarios. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But Oregon also had a 97% chance to make it. So that's 5 teams that are basically ironclad in the playoff. If Oregon loses to Washington, maybe you could say at 10-2, because all these teams are at 10-2, they might be knocked out. They would definitely be on the road in round 1. There's arguments on that, but that becomes like a resume thing, and Oregon does have a very good analytical situation. You've got Texas Tech sitting at 10-1. Their situation, they're very likely to finish the regular season 11-1, make the Big 12 championship. What happens if they lose the Big 12 championship? That is the question when it comes to that conference. If they win out, meaning they also win the Big 12 championship, there's going to be one team, and it's going to be Texas Tech. Texas Tech is probably going to be the number 6 or the number 7 seed at 12-1. They might try and argue for a 5 seed against the group of 5, at number 12, but it's going to be tough against a lot of those SEC teams, because you've got Georgia probably going to finish 11-1. You've got A&M sitting there. They're probably going to get a first round bye. And then you've also got Alabama as well. We'll see what happens. But, Bama possibly making the SEC championship. They have to beat Auburn. But it's going to be hard. Texas Tech may end up as the 5 seed, probably 6 or 7. If they go 12-1, they go 12-1. There's only going to be one team out of the Big 12 that makes it. You've got Ole Miss right now at 10-1, 82% chance they're going to make it. I don't know about this game against Mississippi State. I believe it's on the road. You've got the situation with Lane Kiffin. What a mess that is. And now you have to wonder, does the committee think of penalizing Ole Miss because of the coaching situation? Apparently, it's going to be solved after the Egg Bowl. They're making an announcement. But what a mess that is. And if they lose Lane Kiffin, what happens to Ole Miss in terms of their season, in terms of their rank? I'm sure they're still going to make the playoff, but you're going to have to take that into account. You have Oklahoma at a 78% chance. So Oklahoma, they have a home game against LSU. LSU was kind of given up on the season. They had a close game against Western Kentucky. You would imagine Oklahoma is going to beat LSU. Do I think Oklahoma is one of the 12 best teams? Probably not. Based on their resume, though, they will make it. They did go on the road and beat Alabama. They beat Michigan at home. They've got good losses, or relative good losses. They've got a good strength of schedule. And so that's just the reality when it comes to Oklahoma. They should probably be the number 10 or the 11 seed, but because they have that recent head-to-head win over Alabama, the argument is, well, they can't move below Alabama. If Alabama wins the SEC, they're probably going to move above them. I don't know the current tiebreaker situation in the SEC. So you've got Alabama, Ole Miss, Georgia, A&M, all with one loss. But I believe, obviously, you do have, the way the tiebreakers work out. Alabama beat Georgia, and then Georgia beat Ole Miss. A&M will make it as long as they finish 12-0, but there's also the chance A&M loses it to Texas as well. So we'll see. But right now, I would say probably A&M versus Bama. I don't know the exact tiebreakers between Bama and Ole Miss, but I believe it would probably be A&M versus Bama if A&M and Bama both win. But the thing is, with Oklahoma, it's like, by the way, what if Bama loses in the SEC championship? They're probably still going to make it with 3 losses, because they're not going to be punished for being in the SEC championship. But still, you've got Notre Dame at a 72% chance. So Notre Dame is on the road at Stanford. It's a 10:30 game. They're going to win it. Stanford is not good this year. Notre Dame is a really good team. I know they have kind of a polarizing resume to where they lost those 2 games and they really don't have a great win, because USC just lost. Like, look at their resume. Where's their good win? I mean, at Pittsburgh, maybe. Pittsburgh just beat Georgia Tech. Maybe they get ranked again. beating USC at home by 10, but now USC lost, so they're going to be knocked down. I think they're probably still going to be ranked. USC will that, even after their loss, but there is questions with Notre Dame's resume, but in terms of overall dominance, Notre Dame, yes, these are bad teams, but the margins, the game control, it's very impressive in terms of what Notre Dame is doing. Jeremiah Love, people saying maybe the Heisman winner. So you've got them, you've got Alabama. So these are like the Big Ten. Isn't this 10 teams? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is 10 teams to where it's hard to see any of these teams not making it at this point. And so because then the final two spots are auto bids. It's the ACC champion and it's the group of 5. And so you're looking at James Madison. You've also got North Texas there. Believe it or not, Tulane, I believe, is the only group of 5 team that's ranked right now by the committee. Tulane's down at a 28% chance. James Madison's at a 54% chance. North Texas is at a 48% chance. That's just the group of 5 auto bid. So that'll work itself out. People are going to be pissed about the group of 5 team having representation. I think when it expands to 16 teams, that'll be alleviated a little bit because more of these teams will make it. People keep talking about Miami. I just don't see a spot for Miami. I really don't. And there is the argument, well, they beat Notre Dame. The problem for Miami is that was a week 1 game. They won by 3 points. It was CJ Carr's first start, and Miami has lost to 2 subpar teams since then. They have 2 losses. They have the loss to Louisville. They have the loss to SMU. I mean, I guess SMU is a decent team. Maybe they end up winning their conference. It's just with the ACC, there's no way. There is no way it can be a 2-bid league. It's impossible. The conference is not good enough. And so whoever wins the ACC is probably going to be the 11 seed. The 12 seed is going to be the group of 5. These 10 teams are probably, I don't see how these 10 teams, I guess Oregon loses to Washington maybe. Like, let's say because the thing is, everyone's saying, well, what if Michigan beats Ohio State? Well, Michigan wouldn't be guaranteed to go to the Big Ten championship. They would also need Oregon to lose. If Michigan beats Ohio State, then Ohio State and Michigan have 1 loss. Michigan gets the tiebreaker, but then it's a 3-way tie with Oregon. Between Ohio State, Oregon, Michigan. Oregon would get the tiebreaker if they beat Washington on the road. So Michigan needs Oregon to lose to Washington. They need to beat Ohio State. Then they would go to the Big Ten championship against Indiana. So that's the problem for Michigan, is even if they finish 10-2 and they beat Ohio State, who are they going to knock out? Maybe the thing is maybe Alabama loses to Auburn. Are they going to knock out Notre Dame, the number 3 team analytically? They're not going to knock out Oklahoma. Oklahoma has the head-to-head, and Oklahoma's also got the win over Alabama. So how would Oklahoma be out and Alabama make it? It's just because Oklahoma beat Alabama, that basically stole a spot. And then you have the ACC and group of 5 getting auto bids as well. So that's why it becomes like all these teams are going to have, like Michigan has a 7% chance. SMU has a 18% chance, probably solely on the fact that they could win the ACC championship. Vanderbilt has a 21% chance. The problem for Vanderbilt is they haven't beaten anyone. And it's not like this. So then everyone says, what about Notre Dame? Yes, but Notre Dame is way more dominant than Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt just had a close game with Auburn. But you look at Vanderbilt, there is no good win here. The LSU win was good, but now it's not. The Missouri's going to be unranked. South Carolina obviously is 4-8 or whatever, 3-8 or 4-7, I guess. If they beat Tennessee on the road, which I don't think they will, I think Tennessee will win. Especially how Tennessee looked against Florida. Then they're going to try and have an argument because they're a 2-loss SEC team, but the wins are just not there for them. And there's too many other SEC teams. You've got Oklahoma, you've got Bama, you've got Ole Miss. There's too many other ones. You do have legitimately right now 5 SEC teams with 3 Big Ten teams. The only way I don't see really any way the Big Ten could get 4 teams in, because if Michigan makes it, it would be in a scenario probably where Oregon loses to Washington, if I had to guess. Yeah, Oregon, they're going to be solid favorites against Washington, probably like 9-point favorites against Washington. So the way I see it, Oregon goes 11-1. They're probably the 6 or the 7. They're going to be hosting a playoff game at 11-1, and they don't make the Big Ten championship. Ohio State, you're looking at Ohio State and Indiana going 12-0. They both get a bye. No matter what happens in the Big Ten championship game, they're both going to get a bye. A&M, they finish 12-0. They still have to face Texas. But if they finish 12-0, they're getting a bye. Now you're getting into this territory where Georgia, Bama, what's the tiebreaker? Well, Bama has the tiebreaker over Georgia. Bama sitting with 2 losses. If they beat Auburn, then they face A&M in the SEC championship. They win that game, then they get a bye. A&M probably gets a bye. If Bama loses to A&M in the SEC championship game, A&M gets a bye, and then Georgia probably slides in at 11-1, and then they get a bye. Or maybe A&M at 12-1, if they're Big 12 champions, they get a bye. That's where it becomes an argument. Ole Miss is probably locked into like a 6 or a 7 seed, depending on what happens with their coach. Oklahoma, I guess, is probably a 9 or 10 seed, maybe. I mean, maybe it's like Notre Dame versus Oklahoma. I think Notre Dame would win that game easily against Oklahoma. See, the problem is like, you don't want Notre Dame to face the 1 seed in the second round. This is the exact same thing that happened last year. Ohio State's like the most talented roster, but they're in an 8v9 matchup. Then they have to face, then Oregon has to face them in the second round. Well, Oregon doesn't want to face Ohio State. They're the number 1 overall seed. Why would they have to face the most talented roster? Why would the number 1 seed have to face Notre Dame in the second round? I would move Notre Dame to the 7 line. So you can avoid the number 1 seed facing Notre Dame in the second round. And then Notre Dame faces the 2 seed. Ideally, I'd move Notre Dame probably to the 6 line. But then that's where it becomes a challenge, because then you're jumping them in front of 1-loss SEC teams. Yeah, you could justify it because Ole Miss has the coaching problem. I mean, it's just the reality. You have to. We're not robots. We have to rank these teams based on real life situations. They have a coaching issue. Lane Kiffin is flirting with leaving the program. He's getting offered a bunch of money. That's going to be a huge distraction. That's going to limit their team, and it's going to make their team probably worse off. Now, maybe they galvanize behind it, but you have to judge that. I mean, this is why we don't have a computer model doing this. It's a human thing. It's human rankings, because there is nuance that has to be taken into account. So that's something that's gonna. But that's the thing, is I would probably move Notre Dame up and have them in like a 6v11 game or a 7v10 game, and then move some of the SEC teams down. But I don't know if they're gonna do that. You know, there's people that say Notre Dame shouldn't even make it because they just go by resume. Well, if it was just by resume, why wouldn't you just let a computer do it? Obviously, there has to be nuance involved in terms of dominant performances and game control and team overall roster talent. And you look at Notre Dame, and they check basically every box outside of maybe elite receiver talent. So, you know, that's just what I think about that. And then for Michigan, you know, Michigan is going to be like, well, if we go 10-2, we're making it. Well, I mean, who do you jump? I mean, if Oregon wins, you're not jumping them. You're not going to jump Texas. There's going to be at least one Big 12 team that makes it anyways, whether it's Texas Tech or whoever, but probably Texas Tech because they're going to win their conference. You're not jumping Ole Miss. You're not going to jump Oklahoma. Is there an argument to jump Bama? I mean, then you start looking at the resumes. So the strength of record, you know, Michigan's strength of record at 14 right now. Now, obviously, if Michigan beats Ohio State, their strength of record is going to go up. This gets interesting because Michigan's strength of record probably will, I can't give an exact estimation, but it'll probably be top 10. So if Michigan's strength of record, which is the number 1 metric in terms of end of the season projections, look at BYU. Yeah, but the thing with BYU is they're at number 6 right now. If BYU loses the conference championship, they're probably going to go outside of the top 15 because of the volatility within the Big 12. Yeah. And also their FPI is really flimsy at 15. Their game control is at 14. What's Michigan's game control? 15. Notre Dame's game control is 5. Texas Tech is 2. Miami is 6. Yeah, I mean, Miami does have pretty dominant metrics, to be fair. Like, I would say Miami's the best team in the ACC. The problem is, how are they going to make the ACC conference championship when you've got these 3 teams with 1 loss? Who does Virginia face? Va Tech at home. Who does I think Pittsburgh faces Miami. Yeah, listen, that could be a big win for Miami if they beat Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh is probably going to re-enter the top 25. That's a good win at Georgia Tech, beating the number 16 team. They lost to Notre Dame. They were ranked, then they lost to Notre Dame. Now they're unranked. Then they beat Georgia Tech. I think they're going to be ranked again. What is this game? Yeah, I mean, it's a tough situation for Miami traveling into that cold climate. So maybe Miami wins that game, but then this is the thing. I don't know who you bump out for Miami. How do you get 2 ACC teams into this playoff? Like, maybe Ole Miss loses to Mississippi State and you say, okay, they're done, even though they're 10-2, but because of the coaching situation. So you could say they're done. Alabama loses to Auburn. They're done with not 3 losses. So there's 2 spots. I don't see any way Notre Dame loses to Stanford. Oklahoma maybe loses to LSU. It's unlikely. I mean, these are all unlikely scenarios. They're 10.5-point favorites, and that's an LSU team. It's not impossible. There's a chance that LSU wins that game, but they're not fighting for really anything, and Oklahoma's fighting for a playoff spot. What's the spread in this game? Wow, what is it? It's 8.5. It's interesting. It wouldn't shock me an upset there. It really wouldn't with what's happened with Lane Kiffin. So imagine that happens. Would they still make it at 10-2? Ole Miss? I think you have to. What are they at? 82% chance? I don't know. I mean, it becomes an argument. It depends what Michigan does. If Michigan loses to Ohio State, obviously they're done. And then you also do have Texas. Like, where is Texas? Texas with a 4% chance. I don't see any way a 3-loss team gets in. It's because, I mean, Texas, if they beat A&M at home, what's their other big win? Vanderbilt's a solid win for them. They beat Oklahoma. That's a good win. Man, that's a good resume. I mean, it is. But the loss to Florida. The loss to Florida is what's killing them. Not the loss to Ohio State, the loss to Florida. But, and then you've got Tennessee with 3 losses as well. I mean, people talk about them. They have no chance of making it. Even if they go 9-3, they beat Vanderbilt. It's not going to happen. So, I mean, I think right now that's kind of where we're at. These 10 teams, with at least a 61% chance to make it. This is like the line right here. It's Bama, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, all the way up. And then there's scenarios. Obviously, if Oklahoma loses to LSU, they're done. Notre Dame loses somehow to Stanford, they're done. Alabama loses to Auburn, they're done. Texas Tech, they're not going to lose against like UCF. Oregon loses, then it becomes a question. It becomes a question because Oregon they're 10-2. They don't have crazy good wins, but they have really good analytics. So, I mean, because look at this. You've got Ohio State, a 1.5-point gap, another 1.5-point gap, and then a 3-point gap. So they're a little bit spread out here. But yeah, that's basically all I can say about this. So we'll have to see. I mean, I think it'll just be dependent on the final week and how these games go. But either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you like the video down below. Also follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.